Condensation mopping up is more than just an annoying chore. It's the silent campervan killer. It can lead to rot, rust, and mould, and that can destroy both your investment and your health. And the bad news is that once you actually see the damage, it's often going to be too late, and the repairs are likely to be both heartbreaking and expensive. I lived full-time on a narrowboat for about 6 years, so condensation prevention and management is a topic that is both close to my heart and something I have extensive experience with. This year, in our new Consort Reef campervan, after trying a few simple changes, we have finally found what actually seems to work, as well as what doesn't. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to minimize condensation in your campervan, what setup we're using right now, and a few small tweaks that can make a huge difference to things. So let's start off with the biggest culprit. I'm sure we all know it's airflow. Even if your van is really well insulated, it's the trapped air that causes most of your condensation. Every time you breathe, cook, or make a cuppa, you're making moisture, and this moisture builds up. If it can't escape, it will condense on any cold surface. If you can actually let that warm, moist air out before it has a chance to condense, you will, obviously, have less condensation. We are blessed with 3 opening skylights in our van, one in the kitchen area, one in the lounge just here, and one in the bathroom. We like to open both the kitchen and the lounge vents during the winter for ventilation. When I say open, I don't mean wide open, just open a little bit. The Truma Combi 4DE heater makes sure that we still stay warm. It will run on either electric with hookup or diesel if we're off-grid. And the other thing that I'm sure has helped is our ability to maintain a certain temperature in our campervan overnight. Our heating system has a thermostat so that we can set a minimum overnight temperature. We didn't have this option in our V-Dub, so the heating was always off overnight. As a result, we woke up to some very chilly mornings and we always had wet windows. Sadly, in our Consort Reef, we don't have an extractor fan in the kitchen skylight, as that would be much better for evacuating the moist air caused by the cooking. But we have to work with what we have. People say leave a skylight or window open overnight. Whilst that sounds a great idea, in practice, you will also have to leave a blind open if you're in our campervan. Talking about leaving a skylight open when you go to bed so that all the warm, moist air that you're expelling in your breath has got somewhere to go. We've got this vent cracked just a little bit here using these rather than having it quite a way open. You've got a range of options on this particular vent. With this vent, you can see underneath here, we have got all these holes, and we assume that these are not just for decoration. These are to help provide ventilation when the skylight is open. And of course, with the skylight, the vent runs this way. It's running kind of along here, the vent. And of course the blind comes along here. So you are quite considerably reducing the ventilation by having the blind shut. And if you're someone like me who doesn't like any light at all, you can mitigate, obviously, with the fly screen. So you've got some airflow going in and out, and you'll get some darkening effect from the black colour of the fly screen. But I don't like any light at all when I sleep. So leaving this uncovered overnight isn't something that I would want to do unless I was in a nice dark area and the moon wasn't full. The cab windows have an external thermal cover over them, so there is no point in leaving one of those windows open. The air gap will just be covered up by the cover. Our lounge windows open from the bottom, and the blinds pull up from the bottom. So that won't work unless we want to leave a full window with no blind overnight right by where we sleep. And let's face it, we don't. So that leaves the skylights. We will open the skylights if we stay somewhere where it isn't too well lit overnight. Although on some nights, even just moonlight can be a bit too bright to leave the blind open. Whilst we're talking about ventilation and airflow, let's talk about your bed. Don't trap moisture here. This is often an important one, and this area is often overlooked. Have you ever lifted your mattress or the cushions that you use as a mattress and found that damp, musty smell? Or even worse, the terrifying sight of black mould? As you sleep, your body heat and breath will push moisture right through your mattress. And when that moisture hits the solid, cold platform underneath, you will get condensation. With nowhere to go, it will soon turn into a mould factory. You absolutely have to get airflow under your mattress. All reputable campervan converters will ensure that your mattress base is slatted by some means and that the base box area is vented to help with the ventilation and the air movement. An improvement to this is to purchase an under mattress ventilation layer that is specifically designed as an anti-condensation measure. This is basically a stiff mat that creates an air gap. We use dry mat as this is what I used when I lived full-time in my narrowboat for 6 years, and I never had an issue with the bed area. So I'm also using it in our camper van. Stu, ever technical, has written on our nice piece of dry mat. So the way the dry mat works is it comes in a big roll. It's quite sort of flexible, expandy stuff, and it's a layered material. So you can see there, you've got all this little stuff. If you squash it with 2 fingers, it goes in. So you think, well, what good's that going to be? But if you squash it where weight is distributed, it doesn't go in at all. And what we've done to make life easier for ourselves is affixed some Velcro to it. So we've got 4 corners worth of Velcro. So you can see with bed, although we've got ventilation here, you've got this huge area under here. This bit here in the winter is going to be cold. So where Stu's written back on it, it means this bit goes to the back of the van. In it quickly. So we've got the Velcro on now, so it stays put. It's machine washable, and you just cut it to size with a normal pair of household scissors. Just lives in with our bedding during the day. As you can see, Stu has Velcroed the mat that lives underneath the bench seats, and we've got another one on this side as well, so that when we're messing about and lifting up here in order to get stuff out, we're not having to deal with a moving mat as well getting in the way. So that just stays in the locker with all the rest of the bedding during the course of the day and only comes out at night. Good ventilation helps by letting some of the moisture escape, but we also need to tackle any moisture that's left behind, and these little moisture traps are a lifesaver. I've got a couple under each of the bench seats and one in each cupboard. I use these hanging ones near the cab area and by the kitchen area. They literally pull moisture right out of the air before it has a chance to condense. I move the kitchen area one to the bed area overnight. I prefer these single-use, completely contained moisture traps for campervan use, as there is no danger of any leaks or spillage and no need to empty them and find an appropriate storage place for them every time you travel. We tend to move around a fair bit when we use the campervan. The reusable container type, where you can empty the water out and refill the crystals or refill the block, just aren't as practical when you're moving around as regularly as we do. If you're less mobile in your travelling, then they may work out fine for you and likely will work out a bit cheaper too. Although I haven't looked into that aspect as they just aren't practical for us. We also have a large household dehumidifier which we use at home over the winter, and we will run this in the camper van for a couple of hours every now and then, and especially if we have just returned from a trip. This works really well at pulling moisture from the air. Here is the dehumidifier that we use in the house. This is the collection pot here. As you can see, that is empty. There's a couple of little dribbles in the bottom there, but nothing significant. I'm going to set this to run for a couple of hours and we'll see how much water we collect at the end of it. Timer on for 2 hours and it's on medium. And the time on my phone is 14:28. Time is now 16:23. Let's have a look and see if we've got much water in here. Ooh, look at all this. So you can see quite a bit of moisture has come out. I'm just going to slosh backwards and forwards what's been collected from the dehumidifier. Just pass the camera over to Stu, so right, you ready? Yep. And it's weirdly satisfying to see the water that has been collected and know that that has been what has been removed from your van. One of the things that has made the biggest difference to us is the external thermal windscreen covers. These are by TaylorMade and they are really good quality. We did have padded external windscreen covers on our V-Dub, but they were of a much lower quality and lower thickness. And we always had a wet windscreen in winter in the V-Dub, even with the external covers on and the mesh vents in the pop top open. Since we got our new van in October, there has only been one night when we haven't used these covers, and this was a deliberate choice. We wanted to try out just the Remis blinds overnight and see how they performed in terms of condensation management, as we've never had Remis blinds before. The answer to this was very badly indeed. The windscreen was completely soaked the next morning, and bear in mind this was in October, so it wasn't even very cold, and we had only recently collected the van and had only been in it for 3 nights, so there was not much moisture build-up to start with. I was shocked. So, lesson learnt there. This was the one and only time so far where we've had windscreen condensation. The thermal windscreen cover now goes on every night. When we are at home, it is permanently on the van when it's parked on the drive. And not only does this help with condensation management, it also prevents water ingress into the engine when it rains, as our covers are the long one. Water ingress into the engine is a known problem with Fiats and Peugeots, and this is an easy solution. So these covers kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Yes, we will need to replace the covers sooner than we would have otherwise had we not been using them full time, but we think that's a price worth paying for the protection that they give. One other tip is to look for cold surfaces in your van and ensure that any condensation is regularly wiped away. We have a little area on both back doors which we need to keep an eye on. Do check your vehicle over for similar problem spots and be sure to monitor them and keep them dry. Most of our van has this stretch carpet stuff on the walls, and whatever your thoughts on the aesthetic qualities of this, it is better at preventing condensation than a number of other trim options. This last area that I'm going to look at is really worth thinking about, and that's your daily habits. The biggest cause of condensation isn't the cold weather. It's what we do inside our van every day. So that's cooking, just breathing and drying our clothes. All that moisture adds up. So now we've built in a few small habits that make a big difference. I always cook with a lid when I can, and this keeps the steam down massively. The kitchen roof vent is always open when I cook, and the door too, if the weather permits this. If it's comfortable to cook outside, I will always do that in preference to inside. However, in the winter, dark, cold and wet nights don't often make that an option for a winter evening dinner. Knowing this, I plan our evening meals accordingly. For example, I won't cook something that needs to simmer for a while with no lid on so that the sauce reduces, like a chili, for example. All that sauce is effectively going into the air in your camper van, ready to condense on a cold surface later on that evening. So chili, for us, is a cook outside meal. What do you do with your wet clothes or your washing? I always tumble dry clothes in a campsite tumble dryer, or I'll dry them outside if I can. And we have a little washing line for this purpose. If outside drying isn't possible, then wet gear containment is the next best thing, ideally in a separate but ventilated area. We put our wet things in the bathroom with the vent open and the door closed. We have installed this drying rail just for this purpose. It doesn't get in the way too much, and we have foldable hangers which we use. The heater outlet in the bathroom heats the room up really quickly, which helps with the drying process. The moisture from the drying isn't spreading around the rest of the van. Just before bed, I always do a quick wipe down of windows and surfaces and check any known problem spots. For example, those couple of spaces on our doors. I also double check that any wet cloths, damp towels, or indeed wet tea towels have been put into the bathroom to dry. It's so easy to leave a damp hand towel or wet kitchen cloth out in the van overnight if checking that isn't part of your bedtime routine. And this works, as less moisture sitting overnight in the main van area means that less is available to condense by the morning. So far, we've had no cab area condensation at all, apart from that one Remis blinds night. Never again with that one. We've only had slight fogging on the other windows overnight, and this was when it went down to -3 outside. In our VW, I used to think that condensation was just part of winter camper van life and something you just had to live with. But the adjustments we have made have helped, and so far, so good. If you do get condensation on your windows, a Karcher window vac is a brilliant bit of kit. It always seemed to me to be one of those gimmicky things until we saw one in action. Now we wouldn't be without it. We use it at home a lot as we have a lot of windows, and our bedroom window always gets condensation on a cold night, even with having run a dehumidifier in there for a couple of hours during the day. The Karcher collects the water from the windows and you can just tip it away. Not only is it quick and easy to use, you don't then have a sopping wet microfiber towel which you need to wring out and then get dry, ready for next time. And let's face it, that water that's gone into the microfiber towel will just be busy releasing itself into your van, ready to condense again on the windows. Vicious circle. I'll put a link to the Karcher, the Dry Mat anti-condensation layer, and the moisture traps that we use in the description below in case it's of interest for you. So, there you have it. That's how we manage condensation in our camper van. If this video's helped you out, do let me know in the comments, as we love to hear from you. And I'd also love to hear what's working for you in the fight against condensation this winter. Please do share your tips so we can all learn from each other's experiences. Please consider subscribing to our channel for more campervan tips and travels. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.